because it's good for me to also show the other guys, you know, in the office. So Danny, are you recording this? Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. Thank you.
It's good.
Okay, appreciate that. But yeah, listen, you know, Jim, you probably had a look at that little Sketchtime video that we put together, which sort of really just, you know, I mean, you guys, we don't need to convince you the power of the Cesium Unreal Engine, so the Cesium World Terrain or the Unreal Engine or AWS. You know, what we're trying to do, and really what I'd like to, you know, want to do today is maybe just get, and Dan's driving this again. It's a good example. Dan's sitting in Perth, you know, logging on to logging on to the office here on the Gold Coast.
Nice.
and running it all virtually through Teams, and that's what it's all about. Is ultimately, yeah, there's virtual collaboration, getting people access to these data sets, having more informed conversations from day one. So our remit, and it's very different to a lot of people in the sector, because a lot of the Unreal Engine, to some extent, has been used as a communication marketing type tool, you know. And also at a very, you know, more of a sort of a BIMS digital twin technical level, we want to introduce this suite of tools, being the Unreal Engine, Cesium, and AWS, from day one. As soon as a client, a person has an idea and wants to collaborate and share that in a spatially accurate 3D environment with data, then add stuff. We kind of, that's the journey here, is use it from day one. Just like, you know, we call it sketch time because, you know, generally people pick up a piece of, you know, pencil and paper and start sketching an idea. Well, let's start sketching and playing it, you know, in the real world from day one. You know, that's sort of the fundamental, you know, remit of it. And what we're trying to do with the journey is to start people to understand their site, you know, spatially, you know, in 3D from day one, look at the data sets that might interact with that site, and then start interacting, start drawing, start dragging and dropping, and start doing stuff in 3D from day one. And you know, ultimately we'll be able to hand control over to you, and you'll be able to start and draw and do your stuff. And so you have, it's not so much a multiplayer thing, because we want to control how many people are drawing in the space at the one time, but we want to be able to hand control over to you, and indeed 20 or 30 other people in the session, to have this collaborative, you know, collaborative sort of a journey, I suppose. But, you know, here's Dan just having a bit of a play in an environment that we're working on here in Queensland, actually, just, you know, drawing ridge lines and whatnot.
This is just on the outskirts of Sydney, sorry. I think
that's okay. That's all right. That's all right. That's right. Jim's not going to pick you up on that one, Dan.
I'm in Florida, so I'm about as far away from you guys as you can get. It looks great to me.
Yeah. You know,
now you got a crop circle.
Yeah, exactly right. That's exactly right. You know, and this is also why, you know, the interesting thing with school kids and how it might impact geography lessons, or who knows what it might do. You know, we really don't want to limit ourselves, I suppose. But I guess part of our discussion today, Jim, is really just sort of understanding, you know, where the Cesium journey is at, particularly with the Cesium with Unreal. And maybe this is more some questions for Dan, acknowledging that, you know, the technology side of things isn't your, but, you know, isn't your space. But, you know, we at the end of the day are unashamedly, you know, Unreal Engine based, you know, which is different from Unity, which is different, you know, to some extent, you know, with the Esri guys. But what we're wanting to do is understand, you know, where you guys are sitting. And I know there's different roadmaps and various priorities that you guys are focused on, because you've got a lot of, you know, interest happening worldwide. But it's a matter of, you know, from our point of view, the big data sets that our clients, you know, have spent a lot of money on is this point cloud stuff, you know, the photogrammetry stuff that we're already doing with Aerometrics, but then also the ability to tap into data sets in a more effective way. Now, at the moment, and Dan, I'll let you explain the data set journey and what formats we need, and acknowledging that, you know, we've made a start there, but, you know, we often hear the need to be able to tap into all the Esri data sets, for instance, and bring those into the Unreal Engine. But Dan, I might just let you explain, you know, more of that sort of technical background, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's pretty much basically it. So we know that Cesium JS got i3S support maybe two or 3 months ago. So we're just hoping that comes to Unreal, if there's any plans for that to come, because that would be very useful for clients that already have Esri data, to just be able to stream it in straight away.
So I just want to say on that, sorry, Dan, is that our whole journey, Jim, is that we want to be complementary. We don't want to be perceived as competitors. We just want to say, you know, here's the Unreal Engine, here's Cesium, here's AWS. This is what you can do if it helps your journey. there's a lot of incredible, software out there that a lot of, incredibly smart people use. We just want to provide that output maybe in a different way, in a more engaging way, using the Unreal Engine and other bits and pieces. So it's about complementing, not competing. And that's something that's really important to us, because our whole journey is open architecture, and we're sort of supporting that journey with Cesium and Unreal. And we want to be perceived as, being complementary, to say, well, here's just maybe a different way that you can take that data, represent it to get an outcome. If you prefer to use it in the other software, that's fine. And ideally, we'd like you to be able to bring what you're doing in your bit of software into this, and then vice versa. Once you've done your bit of playing in Sketchtime, take it back into the software that you're using,
Yep. Nope. That makes perfect sense. I think the DNA of the organizations are exactly aligned with open, expand usage, expand the market.
Yeah.
So I think you're preaching to the choir 100%. And from a competitive perspective, yeah, it's a big world.
Yeah.
These are early days. Let's make sure we can all be interoperable, because we're going to run across all those different tools, and the power is going to come in being able to play nicely with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dan just, at the moment, is just using the whole journey of, all this is cloud-based stuff, again, all thanks to the AWS journey. But the reality is all the point cloud that, Dan, you might just pull out that point cloud data there that you've got there at the moment, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, that's sitting in the build, isn't it? It's not streaming in.
No, this is a Cesium tile set, but we're just waiting for the next release before we roll it out to being used, so that we can, because the upcoming release is going to have the ability to control point size and
because the problem is, Jim, you see that when you zoom in close, Dan just showed Jim that when you zoom in close, we lose the fidelity. Now our clients need to be able to zoom in close. So at the moment, and maybe I'll open up a build a bit later, we host all of that in the build, but it means the build's like 50 gig or something. They're massive projects, which is obviously for most people just too big. It's just too hard to manage.
Yeah.
And so I guess part of the question is, is potential timelines, and sort of, when that next version of that point cloud plugin, or whatever it's called, is starting to be rolled out, because that will be a big game changer, as will, and again, pardon me if I don't get my technical words right here, the potential sort of piloting of that on-site sort of premise capability of being able to sort of host this and get these data sets, because we've got a lot of clients that've got a lot of point cloud.
Good.
Or still, let me rephrase this. There's a couple of big consultancies, and I'm sure this is the same globally, that provide, in Australia, there's probably 2 consultants that provide most of the point cloud throughout Australia.
Okay.
And I'm sure Ryan, when Ryan gets on, we'll talk about it too, because I want to go and talk to them about, guys, here's another way to add value to the point cloud data that you're supplying to your clients. And most of them, you end up in the engineering space or the surveying space for bulk earthworks and ground terrain mesh and that sort of stuff. But then they'll be able to integrate it into the environment, like Dan's doing here, and do stuff with it, is the key. Is the absolute. And I said all this is running in runtime. And now again, this is all early days with the Sketchtime stuff. We've got a lot of way to go. We're still just piloting things, and
it's incredible. The performance, at least from my side, is spot on. Yeah, there's really no delay going on whatsoever.
Yeah, and
I know it's through Teams, but
but even that, but that's good, isn't it?
User experience. It's great.
Yeah, no, thanks, Jim. I mean, the guys have done a really good job, and I should say too, we're still working in 4.27. We haven't. I think 5.2 has just been released, hasn't it, Dan? Unreal Engine.
5.2 preview.
Yeah.
The full release won't come out for a couple of months still.
Yeah, so there's always a sort of a balance as to when we jump over to the next version of Unreal, given that we've got a lot of bespoke tools that sit within our engine, so there's a bit of mucking around. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, I'm very impressed with the work the boys have been doing here, and how easy it does come in, into this the 3D world.
I love it. Yeah, no, this is super cool.
So Jim, whereabouts in Florida are you?
So I'm up in the northeast corner, outside of Jacksonville.
Let's go to Jacksonville. Oh,
Yeah.
isn't that a Johnny Cash song or something?
Oh, that might be Nashville.
Nashville, is it? I don't know.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, actually, if you type in
Give us your address, yeah.
Amelia Island, right? Yeah, I'd be happy to give you my address. Tell me when you're ready. Oh, yeah, there you go, Amelia Island. I can walk you right in. So let's see. Go north and a little bit east. Let's see, up a tad more north, and one more flick. If you can see, if you stop right where the mouse is and go just northeast, you'll see like a circle. That's it. Yeah. Come back down just a little bit. We're basically in the middle of that circle.
Oh, that looks like a nice part of the world.
Yeah, it's close to the water, which is nice, and not too far away from fishing. So that big white place, that's not my house, but I'm right across the street from it.
Very good. Very good, Jim. But again, and I guess ultimately our journey is, the world will sort of eventually explode with photogrammetry and LiDAR, and all this will be 3D, and that's really where where we want to sort of expose and integrate. And whilst it's still very, very powerful, have it in this immersive, I'm going to say 2D. It's and whilst we've still got the 3D environment around there, it looks pretty flat though where you are there, Jim. Is it?
Oh
Is it
my,
really?
yeah. The highest point is a highway overpass coming onto the island. I think I'm at a
Right.
whopping 8 feet above
Right.
sea level.
Right. Okay. Okay. Let's
That's
watch
just
that.
Florida in a nutshell, right there.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
nice thing is the Gulf Stream's pretty far offshore, so we don't get any direct hits from hurricanes,
Yeah. Cool.
at least not in the last 150 years. I just probably cursed us, but
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's hope not. Yeah.
yeah.
There you go. But listen, you get the opportunity. You get what this is all about. So yeah. So again, it's really just sort of understanding, to be honest, what we do with everything we do, Jim. We are absolute advocates and promoters of Unreal Engine, Cesium, and AWS. So I guess the other question is, what else can we do to help promote, did I just hear being there with somebody? What else can we do to promote? Oh, there's Ryan. Hey, Ryan. Hey,
Yeah.
buddy. How are you?
Oh, he's on mute. There you go.
These teams. Hey guys, how's it going?
All right. How's the drop off? School run. Good.
It's fine. It's just a few hundred meters down the end of the street, so we just ride
Sweet.
on the bikes, which is good.
Oh, excellent. Hey, Ryan. Great to meet you, mate.
Likewise,
And it's good that you're here in this part of the world as opposed to other parts of the world, which when we have a meeting with Epic or with Cesium or with AWS, it is always strange times. So it'd be good to actually just for Dan to be able to call you up during the day.
It always helps having a bit more spread
at the appropriate time. Listen, we've just been giving Jim a bit of an overview of what we've been trying to do and what our vision and journey is. And one of the and I'm not quite sure when you joined there, to be honest, Ryan, so I'm not sure how much you've already heard, but our real remit here is that we're just here to promote to the world what the Unreal Engine can do, what Cesium is, and then what the Internet of Things provides. So our journey is Epic, Cesium, AWS. It's as simple as that. We're here to complement and strengthen. We're not here to compete. We're here just to open the eyes of people and to promote and educate. There are some wonderful other tools out there, and wonderful other companies doing wonderful things, and they all should be congratulated. Jim was talking about Urban Circus and being competitors. I said, listen, Ben's not a competitor. He's a comrade in arms. He's a godfather in this industry that was really driving the journey for this for many, many years. And we're here to just complement, strengthen, and be part of that same community that is taking people from a 2D static world into an immersive 3D world. And we all know that the market and the world's big enough to handle as many as people doing this as possible. So all we're wanting to do, and this might change, but I can't see it changing until something much better comes along. And I'm not sure how and well it will be, but we just want to promote, as I said, Epic, Cesium and AWS and what we can do together. Yeah, and what that offers. And as I said to Jim earlier, we're not really that focused on specifically targeting the AEC sector, although that's obviously the low-hanging fruit because that's where we're coming from. We're not put this in the hands of anyone. In fact, we've been doing beta testing with 10-year-olds and letting them. Hey Dan, can you just go and fly around these buildings? Yeah, I mean, you guys saw the Sketchtime stuff. Letting them sort of just have some fun and see what they can do, and not be limited to certain, or don't put limitations on what the tool should be able to be used for. So that's kind of where we're at, Ryan. And our main sort of journey with today's session is just understanding where sort of Cesium is sitting, particularly with its relationship with UE and the UE versions and the point cloud stuff and the ability to obviously Esri's a very big player in the spatial world. And come on, Dan, come on, man, what are you doing?
You're flying that like my grandmother, man.
Exactly. In fact, it needs a bit of work. It's only come in the last couple of weeks. But anyway, it's a game. But important of getting this other sort of GIS data into this sort of stuff, into the spatially accurate world, overlaying it with all the photogrammetry that's coming in, all the point cloud data that we're starting to access, and really just to expose and promote and help people understand that this stuff's all available and it's not hard to access, and for years it has been hard to access, and we just want to open that access and that accessibility up, I suppose. It's as simple as that, or as complicated as that. So Dan's just driving around in front of where Jim lives. I think he's decided that
Hey,
Jim,
now that looks kind of fun there. The dune buggy, I can get behind.
Anyway, as I said, this is the sort of stuff that obviously the kids or the young at heart are more interested in. But Ryan, did you have a chance to have a look at that little Sketchtime clip?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep,
So
and look, it's all very familiar.
Yeah.
I guess territory for me in terms
Yeah.
of kind of the tools and the use cases and using
Yeah.
this tech for a lot of those outcomes. You're obviously very familiar with the tech that we built at Urban Circus, which overlapped a lot of that. So it's a very familiar space for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I guess, Dan, you just want to ping some of those technical questions maybe back to Ryan to see if he can help us out with any of that stuff.
Yeah, basically the main thing that now that point cloud is getting to a point where we can actually use it and roll it out for our clients to use is vector support for like GeoJSONs, that sort of thing. Because we implemented the WMS layer maybe a year ago as like a stopgap, because we're using map proxy to ingest some things and spit it back out as WMS so we can overlay it in the world. But if we could actually have vector support in Cesium for Unreal, that would be super useful. But that's a big ask. So I was wondering if there's even a pipeline there for it, like a time frame or anything.
Yeah. So just so that because I've only been here 5 or 6 weeks, so I've been using Cesium tech in Unreal and Unity and that sort of stuff for a very long time, web browsers too. So I'm very familiar with the tech stack. But what I'm less familiar with at the moment is the kind of product roadmap piece, I guess. So have you guys been in touch with any of the team that are working on Cesium for Unreal to date?
We have.
Or is this kind of
mostly on the forums? We've had one call where Kevin was in it. We talked to him directly. But yeah, they the last we heard about like vector was that it's hard and it's in the backlog for a future something to look at.
Yeah, okay, cool. So do you mean vector as in streaming in vector data through 3D tiles, or do you mean overlaying it onto the terrain surface, like graphically?
Both or either. As long as we're hoping for queryable, so probably not an overlay, because that would be that's sort of what we're already doing. We're ingesting it and then spitting it back out as a WMS to overlay. So yeah, queryable vector that can be brought into the scene would be a huge boon, because yeah, a lot of when we present this to people in the industry that are talking about how they would use it, a lot of it is all over how they can use their existing vector tiles, like their GeoJSONs and their shape files from Esri, which I know is a bit of a pain as well, because they have a lot of their metadata stored in there that they would use instantly to be able to make this a lot more interesting for them.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that's certainly something I can follow up with the Cesium for Unreal team and just get a sense of where that is. I haven't used Cesium for vector-based stuff in the past, so I personally don't have a ton of experience. And at the moment, I'm predominantly focused on our Omniverse extension, which was just released this week. So I'm not super deep in the Unreal workflow at the moment. But I can have a chat with those guys, and one of the things that might be worthwhile moving forward is seeing if Kevin or one of the Unreal team could jump into a semi-regular catch-up with you guys to help with those things. Kevin's based in Sydney, so from a time zone point of view, it's also good overlap.
Cool.
Yeah, so even though he's from the States, yeah, he's out here in Sydney. So that could be a useful thing as well, because from a deep tech question point of view in terms of Cesium for Unreal, he's definitely the resource to go to. So that's perhaps something to consider.
Hey, Dan, why there? Can you just go down to Tasmania and pull up these data sets from Tasmania?
Sure.
I mean, at the end of the day, Ryan, our journey is to really just, ultimately be able to access, all this, I'm going to say public data. When I say public data, paid for by the public, whether that's local, state, or federal, and to be able to put it in the hands of anyone. Tasmania's got a pretty good open source architecture that allows us to grab what we need to grab. And Dan, you can again explain the technicalities of this, but we also know that all the local government planning schemes, etc. All that stuff can be brought in if we can get it in the right format, I suppose. And that's really where the opportunity presents itself. And I guess that's kind of once our roadblock, but that's sort of our biggest challenge at the moment is how do we tap into all that current data that sits in all this 2D world, and bring it into this 3D world,
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And then looking at what you had on the screen there, I'm just thinking if that data was vector based rather than rasterized onto the map, you've got that additional challenge of the height piece, right? How do you get this 2D vector data overlaid onto these 3D surfaces, which I'm assuming can and will change, right? You guys aren't just using the Cesium world terrain. I'm assuming you guys support photogrammetry and other custom data sets as well.
It's a big ask to have the vector in there. I know it's a hard one.
But again, guys, we got to, this is where the future. Again, it is a big issue. But this is what we're trying to achieve. And at the end of the day, if it's all too hard, so be it. But that's the vision that we have, because ultimately, I think this is where it needs to go. Is to move, this bloody 2D world of planning, into 3D, because the 2D world is just full of so many bloody problems and unknowns for non-technical people, It's as simple as that.
Yeah, our plan is that, say we draw this line, we're currently saving this out as a JSON save file. And so that the plan is to just be able to save it as a GeoJSON and then export it, and then you can open it in Cesium.js or AutoCAD or whatever you're using. So just the opposite implementation from a data set would be ideal, because then we can bring back in GeoJSONs as well.
Yeah,
if we
I guess
do that ourselves, we might, but if we don't have to, then it would be nice.
Yeah, and look, that's where it comes down to, what's on the roadmap for the Cesium team, and so I guess for a bit of context, as you might know, Daniel, Cesium for Unreal is built on top of Cesium native, which is a C++ implementation of basically stringing in 3D tiles. That's what the focus is for. That's really the core of Cesium. So what we avoid doing is building, say like Unreal specific features or Unity specific features or Omniverse specific features. In general, right? What we prefer to focus on is Cesium native features, which then trickle down into all of those runtime engine implementations. That's where, from a roadmap point of view, those sorts of features would need to be aligned. And I can't talk for the team behind native, which Kevin is also part of. But I would say with the GeoJSON piece, it's probably less aligned to 3D tiles, which is what the core is of Cesium native. And I'm not sure how much the team would be moving towards looking at kind of general GIS type capability, like a Unreal GeoJSON loader, for example.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So if your data was to go back into the 3D tiles format, then yeah, it makes sense because that's what Cesium native is built for. There's probably less of a precedent for pure GeoJSON. Again, I'm just talking off the top of my head with my development background experience and being here for 5 or 6 weeks. The other thing, though, that I'm just thinking from a tech point of view as well, based on the quantity of data you had in there before in Tassie with all of those overlays, is what sort of performance challenges would be there in terms of a querying point of view? Because I'm assuming when you talk about querying, you're wanting to then be able to filter and click on shapes and bring up attributes and maybe color them via things and who knows what, right? But lots of different GIS-y kind of stuff. Would that be right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Pretty much the same as how the OSM and the New York buildings implementation is. They use the encoded metadata component because these are all colored based on the OSM buildings are colored. And basically the same thing. I don't know how deep of the attributes we would need, but yeah, the performance would probably take a huge hit.
Yeah, look, again, all of that data. Okay. I'd say now, what I would doubt would happen is I doubt the native team or the Cesium team would work on kind of like a generic GeoJSON loader for data at that level. That's tricky from a performance point of view. But what would potentially work is if you're able to convert those data sets into 3D tiles, and especially those ones that are polygon based, right? They're still geometry, like that could be done right now. You need to convert them into 3D tiles. And if you've got a workflow where you can go from your GeoJSON or whatever web API they come from into a 3D tiles data set, which is optimized for performance streaming, yada, 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 then that's going to be much more in line with what the Cesium for Unreal plugin loads in. And you could then explore what sort of attributes you could attach to those 3D tiles, which would obviously be the attributes from the underlying spatial data. And that's where at least being able to stream in that data, get some attributes and potentially do something with it becomes much more achievable. What that's still probably not going to give you, though, is it's not going to give you the ability to, I don't know, just search for a particular pieces of geometry with certain attributes and do those sort of real deep querying.
Yeah, and guys, I'm going to say, to be honest, I think all that is a long way down the track.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot more that the vision that we have for Sketchtime is about than getting, because there's already a lot of good bits of kit that that do a lot of that stuff, I think, Ryan. So where this is all going to go in the next 5 to 10 years, who knows? But I know it'll go a long way, and I also know that we got to be realistic around what we can do in sensible steps, and we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We want to really, at the moment, focus on how do we expose the world to what we can do and what's available, get them excited by it. And, you guys would know yourselves, or certainly Ryan being in the space, how far this has come in the last 3 to 5 years. Who knows where it's going to be in the next, 5 years. And there's going to be a lot of smart people around the world doing a lot of really interesting things in terms of how to bring all this sort of stuff together. So whilst Dan, we're sort of talking about the ultimate goal, we know that's not going to happen anytime soon. But yeah, all we're trying to do is look at what we can do in the next 6 to 12 months to help sort of promote the capability and opportunity that these sorts of technologies can provide.
Yeah. So just another idea, Dan, have you considered, in terms of being able to say click on a shape and get some attributes, have you considered an architecture where you would send off a query to an API with a latitude and longitude and say, hey, give me back data at this point?
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea as well.
Because
I hadn't thought of converting GeoJSON to tile sets and then having a queryable API with lat long is a really good idea.
And look, you might not even need to turn them into tile sets, right? Like you've already got them streaming in as rasterized imagery, and that actually does have a lot of benefits in terms of just being able to overlay them on the terrain, right? It completely gets rid of that problem of going, I've got 2D data, how do I generate a static 3D version of that that just happens to fit nicely over my terrain? Because you know what it's like, right? Different terrain detail levels have different sets of geometry. It's coarser, it's finer. And then you've got these static 2D tiles, which are designed to overlay on certain pieces of terrain. What happens if it's a really big piece of vector data that covers a valley like we're seeing here? You then need to suddenly, you don't just drop the edges of the polygon down to the surface. You suddenly need to give the polygon, contour, and it becomes a really tricky problem. Like we always struggled with it when we were trying to get vector data into models like this at Urban Circus. So the rasterization does have its benefits. And so if you've got a workflow where you can then, query, click a point, and that would send off a query to a web server, a geospatial API effectively, and it says, give me back the information at this particular latitude and longitude, then when you get that back, you can do whatever you want with it. And the great thing with that is if you're using a spatial database behind the scenes, it's going to be super quick. Right? Yeah, and you're not going to have to solve that problem client side. You've just now built an API. And you might be able to get that with stock Esri services. You might be able to get that with some sort of open source spatial API. There's lots of different ways to do it, but that could be a really good way to solve your particular challenge at the moment in terms of being able to interact with that data a little bit more and get info. Whilst
that's really smart.
So it might even be that, because I think you said you've got that information in a web mapping service right now. Yeah, the rasterized stuff.
At the moment it's been converted and cached with map proxy on a server. We can host the information as well there.
Yeah, so it might even have, I'm not familiar with map proxy, but it might even have that capability out of the box, or it might not be too hard to do. There's lots of different ways to do it. Things that I've done in the past, depending on how much customization you need, I've used, so this is Python based, but I've used the Django web framework, which has really strong geospatial extensions and a really awesome REST API library called Django REST Framework. I've used that to build spatial backends for interactive models that are very similar. Like I've worked on property type projects before where the clients wanted to store all of their property sales information, right? So which lots are for sale and how much they cost and yada, yada, yada. And it's got a couple of hundred lots or a couple of thousand, whatever it is. Store them in an API, and the API request is give me info at latitude, longitude, and it will send back one or more results depending on what you kind of need. And they can also send back vector data as well as GeoJSON, which you could then use to sort of like draw a vector-based shape for that particular property on your screen. So you still get a bit of, maybe use that to highlight the volume, or you draw a box around it, or whatever it is you do. There's lots of different things you could do with that kind of workflow. And it would just mean keeping that API in sync with the rasterized data, which is on the screen, which again, wouldn't be too hard to do.
Yeah. That's really, thank you very much for that idea.
Hey,
That's good.
I just said, Dan, I said, Rob said that, Ryan was a guy worth talking to. So, Ryan, we really appreciate the insights. And he said, in fairness, this is all fairly new for Dan, and he certainly hasn't been in the space for as long as you have. So, it's really, it's really nice that he's been able to connect with you, Ryan, because I know part of the challenge is talking to other people to get the challenge of what we're trying to do and providing some insights. So and the fact that you're maybe a little bit more available in the Cesium world is obviously is beneficial. So if Dan can certainly reach out every now and then, that'd be great. As well as I said, touching base with Kevin and whatnot with the Unreal side of things. Hey guys, I need to get out of here. I've actually got to get a couple of dogs down to the vet this morning, which I forgot about. My wife's just come and knocked on the door and reminded me. Dan, I'm more than happy if you guys want to keep chatting for a while, please do so. But really, it was great to meet you, Jim. Great to meet you, Ryan. Let's stay in touch. And Jim, obviously keen to understand, where we're potentially sitting with this, on-site, trial or evaluation with the point cloud stuff. And I said, Ryan, from our point of view, we're just trying to work out, what we can do with what's available, and to be aware of, I guess, to be made aware of some things that we might not be aware of because we're not as close to the Cesium world as you guys are, and indeed with the Unreal world. So, we've got a really good relationship with the Unreal guys, good relationship with AWS guys, and I guess we're just trying to build upon that with the introduction to you, Ryan, and how we can sort of better promote what Cesium's doing, and all the cool stuff that's potentially available,
Sounds great.
See that cutting both ways. Luke, it was great meeting you. I hope you feel better quickly. Let's touch base in the next week or so. This got my brain clicking.
Oh, good. So guys, do you want to keep going, Dan? Do you guys, Ryan? How are you going for time?
Yeah, I can probably do another 15 minutes until 9, and I have to jump off. So happy to talk tech.
So Dan, you might as well take advantage of that, in the nicest possible way.
Yeah.
All right, and just ask as many questions as you can, mate. There's no wrong, as there is no wrong questions. Just ask, and take advantage of the wonderful people that are on the other end of the line. Thanks, boys. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Lee.
Cheers.
Take care.
Thanks,
Bye.
Jim, you can probably drop off as well if you want. We'll just talk tech.
I might, but I'm learning some stuff. Do you mind if I just
go for it, mate?
Listen?
Yeah, go for it.
And good to see you, Ryan.
Yeah, likewise.
Hey, thanks, buddy. All right. Yeah, sorry, Dan. I didn't mean to interrupt. Ryan and I haven't seen each other probably since we started 5 weeks ago. So
No worries.
Always nice to see a friendly face on the line.
Both part of the February class. I'll be back in April, Jim, actually.
Oh, good. Perfect. I'll be up there too.
Okay, cool. Put the family in tow.
Nice.
Go, Dan. Go for it.
Over to you, Dan.
Yeah, but basically, I just wanted to say that we're already really doing that with the Google API because we're getting these vector lines for these mapping paths, and then we're just placing them in the scene. So
Perfect.
We've almost already done it.
Yeah, look, and that's great. So I think it's a very, very similar concept, and I think even if Cesium for Unreal had the ability to stream in GeoJSON, had the ability to query it, search, that sort of stuff, I just don't think from a performance point of view it's going to get there for those big data sets. So doing it the tried and tested way of, hey, API, give me information here is kind of, I think, your future-proof solution. What you might want to be doing is looking at what sort of web backend, like singular web backend, could you get that has support for the web mapping, rasterized stuff, has support for vector, has support for the querying type functionality via an API, so that you don't end up with you know, these sort of separate but slightly related services. And I mean, one of the first paths to look at would be, I'm trying to remember what it's called. I think it's part of the OSGeo4W open source spatial stuff. There's a server-based GIS system. I'm just trying to remember what it is. That might be worth looking at. Map server maintained. It's not great. Just open it up.
The other thing too is that we have a couple of clients that need their, because at the moment we're deploying our real-time fields through pixel streaming. So we're hosting server, then it's streaming to them. So they like TMR, they have to have everything hosted on their VPC, and everything has to live within their own little AWS VPC. So something that's containerized would be super beneficial as well for doing this, I think now.
Yeah, so map server, I'll just paste a link in the chat. I personally haven't used it, but it's part of the OSGeo 4W set of things, which also includes, you know, GDAL and QGIS and all of those open source geospatial libraries and tools. So it's kind of in good company. It's been around since the 90s, right?
Yeah.
So that could be a good solution for you to kind of have a one-stop spatial data backend for these experiences. So you can deploy all your raster stuff, deploy all of your vector stuff. It should be able to let you query via those mechanisms, like the vector-based, the standard vector-based geospatial API schemas that are out there let you query via latitude and longitude and things like that, and it will support all of those standards. You know, those agreed open standards for spatial data querying. So that's probably a good path. Probably the easiest, most foolproof way would be to throw it up into Esri ArcGIS Online, because it all just works. But you know, it's Esri, so it can get a little clunky. But again, like if you chuck a vector data set up into Esri, bam, it's there as an API ready for you to query. If you chuck a raster data set, it's there as an API ready for you to query. So there's a few options there, but that's probably one of the avenues I'd be looking at.
Cool.
And then, yeah, you can look at how you structure that from a project. You know, do you have a centralized one for your open source data that all of your clients talk to, right? Because with TMR, it should in theory be less of an issue for them to, if it's not their data and if it's just open data sets, then, you know, can their application grab the open data sets from your standard server that you use for all of your clients in Queensland, for instance, versus...
We asked, because they won't even let us host our photogrammetry tile sets on S3 and then go between there, and it's their data. They have to have it hosted on their VPC.
Yeah, okay. You must have got a project manager that knew what they were talking about, hey?
We spent 2 weeks with their IT department getting just like 2 IP addresses that we were allowed to use.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. Okay. But anyway, look, there'll be solutions there. That's how I do it.
Yeah. The other thing that we've got, well, like even I forgot, one of the clients was asking, because they somehow were knowledgeable about Cesium JS, which was a surprise, but they asked, because Cesium JS got the I3S support for the Esri polygons. So we're just wondering, at what point is there a date for I3S support in Unreal at all, or Unity? Because it would already be implemented at some point as a 3D tile set?
Yeah, good question. I think I can circle back and ask, but look, the way that the team likes to work, given the strong focus on open source, is, as you've already been doing, those sorts of questions asked in the forums are almost always the best and fastest avenue to getting an answer. So if you haven't already, I'd post a question like that in the Cesium for Unreal forum. You say, hey guys, is this on the roadmap and when? And then, the benefits of that is it's not going to be bottlenecked by me. I'm just going to go off to those people anyway and ask them. But also, because we do have people around the globe working within that team, you probably get a faster response simply because there's more eyes on it. So I think those sorts of questions, as long as it's not sensitive to your project and all that sort of stuff, ask away at the forums. And Jim's posted the support email as well. It's worth asking.
Yeah, I do post on the forums a lot. I only just thought of it, so I thought I might ask.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, look, again, I'm not, just for context, I'm not deeply involved in Cesium for Unreal at the moment. I've used it professionally quite a lot. But at the moment, my main focus is Cesium for Omniverse, and that's where I'm going to be playing for at least the next 3 to 6 months quite deeply. So I think, unless you're super stuck with an issue, during Aussie hours and it's totally blocking you, feel free to ping me with an email if you really need to. But I think most of those queries, if you go via the forums initially, if it's not sensitive, that'll be the fastest response time.
Cool. Yeah. One other question, actually 2 questions. Omniverse, is their rendering backend is using Unreal, isn't it? Like the Unreal rendering pipeline?
No. So Omniverse is all NVIDIA. It's all ray tracing. So you need RTX cards to run it. But it's all proprietary NVIDIA tech.
Okay.
And it's all heavily focused on ray tracing. There's no, the link between, I don't know how much you know about Omniverse, but think of Omniverse not so much as an application that you open like the Unreal Engine, or an application that produces apps like the Unreal Engine. Omniverse is more of a standardized platform that's heavily focused around the USD format for data interchange. And think of it as a series of hundreds of interconnected libraries that let people do everything and anything with 3D data. And the point there is that for applications built within the Omniverse platform, they're all built on top of standard libraries in the Omniverse platform. So the intent there is that if you've authored a scene with USD, so Universal Scene Descriptor, which is a Pixar originated format, if you've authored a scene with that, it should be able to be loaded into any Omniverse application. But also there's a huge focus on what NVIDIA call connectors, which are effectively importers and exporters of USD to and from all sorts of applications. Lots of stuff in the AEC. Unreal's one of them, Unity's one of them, all of those sorts of projects. So the idea is that you can have teams working across multiple tools within their various disciplines and all collaborating on a centralized USD file, which supports, there's a whole bunch of, it's quite complex USD, but there's a whole bunch of stuff around collaboration and live editing and things like that. So a use case for me with Unreal was creating some content inside of the Unreal Engine and then exporting it out to Omniverse via USD and using Omniverse to render it with its ray tracing engine, which is quite straightforward to do. And there's I'll find it on my LinkedIn, actually, I'll find it on the Cesium blog post. There was a presentation at GTC just this week from our team, along with the team from Epic around a collaboration that they did for with Omniverse and the Unreal Engine, and I think Unity as well. So it's a good little use case to kind of show that multiple applications all working in the one space. Find it. But yeah, jump on. I think you said you had another question as well.
Yeah, my other question is more of a tiling question. So we've got access to Cesium, Cesium GLTF1 version photogrammetry for Sydney. So that's free from New South Wales government, but because it's GLTF1, it's only suitable for Cesium JS. So I was just wondering, is the Cesium tiler able to pull in one form of tile set and output another form of tile set, or do you need the original data set first and then run it through the tiler?
Yeah, good question. I actually hit this a week or so ago, where I had a data set that was GLTF1 as well. And there is a branch on 3D tiling tools that someone, I don't know if it's an internal person or external person, but someone's modified. You just pointed at a GLTF1 tile set and it just goes through and updates all the GLTFs to the latest version. So let me find that and I will I'll flick it through. Your email should be in the invite, right? I think you're in there.
Yeah. It's just daniel.a@v2i.com.au.
Yeah, cool. Let me find that because I had the exact same problem. I got an older data set, came out of context capture. I couldn't do anything with it in Unreal. It was giving me all the version is too old type errors, whatever they are.
Yeah.
And yeah, this sorted it out. So I just need to find where I did that exactly.
Cool. Because last time we had that issue, we had to go back to error metrics, so then they charged for like an extra month worth of processing time to convert it.
Yeah, no, you can. It's worked for me so far. I hit this issue like 2 years ago, solved it, promptly forgot how I did it, and then hit it 2 weeks ago. I was like, I've done this before. I searched. Sometimes I have that problem. I search and I find some really useful person who's posted a response on the forum with a solution and then realize it was me from 2 years ago. So I posted the answer and then forgot how I did it. So I didn't post on the forums for that one. But yeah, I'll find it for you, man, and flick it through.
Cool.
Oh.
There you go. Well, there's a break in the action. I may gracefully bow out, guys. Dan, nice meeting you. Ryan, great seeing you. Yeah, and Dan, look forward to working with you some on this.
Yeah, you too. Nice to meet you too, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, good seeing you, Ryan. Thanks for popping on. You made the call worthwhile for him. I was running out of songs and jokes, so glad you stepped in.
Not a problem, man. Anytime.
All right. Take care, guys.
See you, Jim.
The other thing as well, I posted on the forum because I started working on it, but I lost, I ran out of time on that sprint to work on it. But I had this idea where, so we have WMS, TMS streaming in now as a component on like an entire tile set. But if you just want a region, then you just want to have like a projector decal on a particular area that brings in a tile set, like a raster overlay for that area. But I got stuck, like it works okay, but I got stuck on, because we are decals are orthographic projection, we need a skewed projection to that geographic coordinate based on the WMS input. Yeah, I was wondering if you had any thoughts on how you would go about that.
Talk me through it again, just so I've got it.
So, say I have this area of this lake that I have some sort of WMS information, but I only want a particular area, and I drag out, like, let's pretend this is Amy Stadium is a WMS data set, and I can drag it out as a decal, and then I can move that around and I can project only that square portion of the WMS, so it gets requested by that tiny little area. And then
Right.
that allows it to be projected over not just Cesium data, but if you have like a 3D object, like a city massing or something, and you want to project a WMS service over the top of that, instead of having to make a component that will then overlay over static meshes or blueprints or C++ actors or whatever, you can just have a decal that'll project on that geometry and it'll query. But because decals project orthographically, so it doesn't skew for how the object is actually positioned on the world. It's a bit of a pain. It half works, but I'm stuck on the projection side of it because I need to, probably in the material side of it, I don't know, like you would skew the edges of the decal perhaps in the material projection. Yeah, that it's an idea I had for, instead of having to implement these sorts of WMS components for all these different actors.
Yeah, I don't know, it's kind of hard for me to give a specific answer because it's quite a specific use case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I probably need to see it in action and see. Run through it a bit. Yeah, I'm not sure I've got a solution there. Sorry.
That's all good. I made a forum post and then people just said keep me posted, and I haven't posted anything because it doesn't work. So I'll post something that doesn't work and see if anyone has any suggestions.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Cool, man. Just while we're on the call, because I've found my repository now. I couldn't remember where I checked it out. I'll just make sure. Yeah. Okay. This is the one.
Hi lads, I've actually just rejoined. We decided logistically, because I've got COVID, it's probably not sensible to go to the vet, so I'm back on.
Unless they can sort the COVID out for you.
Yeah. No, it was all organised before I had COVID, so we're just trying to get the dogs organised in the car. Anyway, that's life. Hey, the other thing too. Sorry for interrupting, and I just and Ryan, I really appreciate you're still online, given that you're a bit over the deadline. The other thing, has Jim gone? Looks like he has.
Jim's jumped off.
Yeah, that's cool. One of the things I also wanted to ask, and maybe Dan, you might have already touched on this, is that at the moment, when we demo this stuff, we obviously are just demoing different sorts of data sets that are available and different sorts of Cesium, tile sets that are available. So for, we're obviously got the Aerometrics data sets that have been released. I guess there's another question is, are there other data sets that Cesium, might have that we can demo as part of, this sort of, promotion of what it's all about? And is that more of a question for Kevin? I don't know who's the best person to ask there. Was it back to Shazam? Yeah.
Yeah, look, it's probably more of a Jim and Shazam question.
Yeah, cool.
I'm not super familiar with what data sets we have, might have available that aren't already accessible via ION. I'm sure there's potentially some, but from what I've seen, most of the demo data sets we've had are either being made open, or we've spoken to someone like Aerometrics and gotten those. That being said, all of the ones that I've seen used that are awesome have come from Aerometrics. So if you're talking to David Byrne and team, then
well, in fact, we've got a session with them next week, because I know they've got they've got a heap more data sets coming out of the States too, which I guess are all their data sets being converted into Cesium tile sets? Do you know? Or?
For the most part, yeah,
cool.
So they tend to export them out of context capture in multiple formats, or if they haven't, it can be. Most of the cities that they've got on their website, and if you go to their American version, which is just aerometrics.com, they've got a whole bunch of examples of their US cities. So obviously in Cesium Ion at the moment, they've got Denver, they've got San Francisco as two that are non-commercial trial type data sets. So I don't know if you played with either of those. They're quite cool.
No, we have, haven't we, Dan?
Yeah, we have both of them.
Yeah, cool. There's obviously Melbourne, which is a little bit older now.
Yes.
But yeah, it's worth talking to them.
Yeah, no, we are. We're going to have a session with them. Yep.
Yeah,
Because our sort of, again, sorry, I didn't mean to hijack the discussion there, guys. Is that, with the licensing of this stuff, is that it may well be, and again, it's all early days, and we're looking for partners to sort of take this thing further because it's out of our remit. But things like all that photogrammetry data set, it might just simply be that if you want those tile sets, they're just a simple license back through Aerometrics. We want to sort of give people options as to what sort of data they might want to interact with, I suppose.
Yeah, look, and I think have that conversation with David and the team there. But yeah, that would kind of make sense, right? If they want access to the data, there would be some sort of process where
absolutely
they would Aerometrics would clip the ticket or they'd buy
access
from whatever it might be.
Yeah, cool.
To approach it. Yeah.
No worries. Sorry, guys. I'll let
you
keep going.
All good. I was just finding a link and then I'll need to jump off. But so that was the specific branch that I used to upgrade those data sets. And if I find the command that was used. So if you have a look at the README from that repository as well, there is a upgrade command. It's in the README as well, but I'll paste it in. Basically, if you grab that specific branch and run the upgrade command on a data set, what it will do is it will go through and it will, I'm pretty sure it does it in place, so maybe make a backup of the data before you do it, but it'll run through and update the GLTF version to the version that's compatible with Cesium for Unreal, and that should solve your problem.
Awesome, that's very helpful.
Not a problem. Cool, guys. Well, I've got to bounce, but really good to meet both of you. It's looking really cool. Nice level of polish in there at the moment on the tools, which is really good to see.
Yeah, sweet. No, I said it's still early days, but hopefully we're heading in the right direction.
Yep.
And Ryan, listen, I need you to be frank and honest. If Dan needs to reach out, I mean, I know you said your focus is pretty much on is on the Omniverse stuff, which is all looking pretty cool. We obviously don't use that at the moment, although we're keen to sort of understand more. But are you available if Dan's got a few questions every now and then?
Yeah, look, my Shazan wants me to focus solely on Omniverse. I'm not going to have tons of time for support. What I would say is for general questions, via the forums is always the best way because the Cesium for Unreal team monitors that.
Yep.
And then if you're particularly stuck with a showstopper or something like that during Aussie hours, then feel free to ping me with an email. But for the most part, I'm probably going to refer to that team anyway.
No, I appreciate that.
Yep.
I said I can tell by the way. I know Dan's really appreciated the opportunity to chat to you.
Yeah, not a problem. Look, I think where we're out of value today and where I can add value in the future is that more higher level architecture piece. So we just had a conversation about how we might, use GIS web services to solve some of those problems. So versus hey, I'm having a crash with Cesium for Unreal, which I'm probably not going to be able to help with, or hey, I'm having a really specific challenge with this. That's best for the Unreal team. But if you're just kind of going, if I was going to build the application, here's a couple of ways that we're thinking about it at a high level. That's where I can definitely add some value for you guys.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. And Dan, do you want to reach out and spend have some time with Kevin, at some stage too, given I didn't realize he was Sydney based actually.
Yeah, maybe. I'm pretty post on the forums whenever I have an issue, and Kevin's normally the one to respond, I guess, because it makes sense he's in that zone. So
cool. All right.
Yep. But yeah, look, I mean, maybe circle back with Jim, kind of him managing the relationship, and if you guys want to set up a regular, monthly cadence or something like that, or 3 weekly, or whatever it ends up being, then a session like this could be set up. It doesn't need to be overly long, but just a touch base. How you guys going? Any major issues? Probably a higher level
Yeah,
high
that'd be
level
great.
call. I think that would possibly be a way forward. But yeah, circle back with Jim. That way,
Yeah.
there's a few cooks in the kitchen.
Sure.
That
No, I
way
get
he
that.
can kind of own the process, and then we'll sort it from there.
Thanks, buddy. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. No worries,
All right.
guys. Enjoy your Friday. Have a good
Yeah.
weekend.
Yeah. Hey, Ryan, would you mind? And I don't know if you on that email or not, but I see Jim filled out the Sketchtime survey before even we had the demo. But as part of the Epic Mega Grant, we're trying to just get feedback to what we're trying to do. It's a little 3-question. It'll take you a minute or two. Would you mind if I ping your link to it and
Yeah, go for
just
it.
get some feedback? Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Not a problem. Awesome.
Hey, Dan, do you want